Hello and welcome to The Good Leader. In today's video, I will introduce 6 things that leaders can do right now to start shifting morale and impacting the conditions on your unit or in your department during challenging times. Often, leaders don't know what to do because you can't fix or change the situation that you're in. You may be working really hard, and yet you find yourself very limited as to what you can do to actually make an impact. And other leaders look for big things to do to make a difference, um, when in fact there are very simple things that we can do to make people feel good, and they cost nothing but time and attention. The one thing good leaders do not do is hide. Your people need you. So, welcome to The Good Leader, where we explore aspects of good leadership in the healthcare arena and take the journey to becoming good and effective leaders. I am Dr. Julie Donnelly, and I develop leaders through individual coaching, speaking, educating. As a thought leader and an educator and previous nurse executive, my goal is to help you become the best leader that you can be so you feel good about your leadership ability, your skills, you feel confident, and you enjoy leading. If you are new to the channel, please be sure to go ahead and subscribe. Although I will speak about healthcare, any leader in any industry can benefit from the good leader. So today's topic, 6 things a good leader can do during difficult times. Right now, we're in the middle of COVID, and healthcare is struggling along with every industry, but healthcare is really struggling. People are tired, there are reduced resources, and staffing levels are strained. So the question then becomes, are leaders doing enough to care for their staff? Leaders need strategies for addressing their staff's emotional state. Not always an easy thing to do. So what can you do if you find yourself in a no-win situation? A no-win situation is when you find yourself in a position where you can't change the conditions. You cannot make things better for the staff. You're working as fast as you possibly can, doing as much as you can, and the reality is people are just going to need to work with what they have for as long as it takes until things can change. So as we continue to deal with COVID, you may be managing too many patients and not enough staff. But a few years ago, well before COVID, my nursing department experienced a time when we were severely short-staffed for a significant time frame. And in fact, it took us 22 months to fill our vacancies. And from a management perspective, we did what we could do. So we were actively recruiting in every way possible. We worked with the agencies that we contracted with, but they could not provide us with enough staff to cover the open slots that we had. We offered bonuses to those who picked up shifts. We even evaluated salaries and increased wages for the nursing staff to ensure that we were competitive. So from the management perspective, we did everything we could do. From a leadership perspective, we also did other things. Since we all had to work extra shifts and chip in whenever possible, this was a rough time for all of us, but we got through it by pulling together. And when you cannot change the circumstances, you must tap into the things that you can do, the things over which you do have control, and that is the work environment. So how people feel when they come to work every day, that's what you can impact. You can't change the circumstances all the time, but you can change the environment that people come into. So let's get started with the 6 steps, the 6 things that you can implement right now to help you alleviate stress and strain of your staff and create a space where people feel good about coming to work. All right, step 1, appreciate your staff. Identify the qualities about your staff and recognize them. Appreciation, according to Merriam's dictionary, is a feeling or expression of admiration, approval, or gratitude. So appreciation has more to do with being grateful for that person. In other words, the human being, beyond what the person does. People have an innate need to feel valued and important, to matter, just for being themselves. So look for the good. It's like a treasure hunt. Um, Even if you don't like the person, there is good that that person is. What do you like or appreciate about who that person is? Consider what it means to have that person on your team or in your life. It benefits you. What, how? In what ways does it benefit you to have that person around? So that's step one. And then at any and every opportunity, acknowledge them. Make sure they know that you appreciate and value them. And because you're the leader, the more you do this, the more other people start to announce appreciation for others. And so you create an environment where appreciation is the norm. You want to appreciate people loudly and often and sincerely. Very important, because people can read your phoniness a mile away, and you will diminish your effectiveness as a leader. They won't trust you if you're not sincere. For people who struggle with receiving compliments or acknowledgments, make sure they hear you. It's very important to be heard when you're acknowledging someone. People need to, they crave to be valued, not only for the things that they do and how they contribute, which is also important, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but for who they are as human beings. And we need to do a better job of acknowledging each other and being good to one another all the time, and not just during times of great challenge. But during challenging times, it's even more important. William James said, "The deepest principle of human nature is a craving to be appreciated." So that's tip number one. Tip number two, offer space for sharing and complaining. Yeah. So create a safe space for staff to complain about things and to share with you their frustrations. Now, this can occur during staff meetings. It doesn't have to be a separate event. You want to set some rules for the sharing so that it doesn't become this big gripe fest, but it's controlled and people know what to expect from the meeting. Uh, when you create a safe space for sharing challenges, you may discover things that you can fix and problems that can be solved. And again, we're talking about during challenging times, but really anytime you want to know what your staff is facing. What do your people need from you? This is where you're going to learn what's problematic, what's getting in the way of them being able to function well to do the job. If you're open to the listening, you will learn plenty from their complaints and their frustrations. Now, you may find sometimes that people just want to be heard. They just want to feel like they have a voice, and they just want to vent. By taking the time to listen, people feel that you care about them. This is especially true during difficult times. When you have that safe space, it creates trust and allows people to bond, because they don't feel so alone. Now, as I mentioned, you can do this in a formal meeting with a designated time. So you have, your new business, your old business, your, any frustrations, challenges that you're facing. Or you can just do it on an ad hoc basis, meet with your staff and say, hey, what's going on? Allowing staff to vent appropriately does two things. One, it may help eliminate the gripe sessions that may be happening on the floor in earshot of others, such as patients or people from other departments, which is not really what you want to have happen. So if you have a safe space for them to come and you're there, then they complain. You get to hear their complaints rather than other people in other departments. And two, it builds goodwill for you. It builds goodwill for you and camaraderie among their peers. People feel heard, and so while it may not be fulfilling every need that they have, it is something, and that counts. And they will appreciate you for that. Don't forget to ask what they're finding that is going well. What is good, right? Because it's never all bad, so venting is fine, but we want to look for the good as well. Okay? So that's number two. Tip number three, express gratitude. What are you grateful for? Appreciation and gratitude are different. Gratitude is a feeling of thankfulness. People talk about having a gratitude journal and acknowledging things every day that they're thankful for. Too often in stressful times, we tend to focus on what is wrong, what is not working, and we forget that we have good things too, and we have each other. We have many things that are working well, and for that we can be grateful. Gratefulness is a powerful ally. Counting our blessings helps to lift depression, and it helps us to feel happier. In fact, there's been a lot of research done on the different gratitude practices. As I mentioned, a gratitude journal. In a 2017 article in Greater Good magazine, which is by Berkeley, researchers Brown and Wong reported that gratitude can lift toxic emotions by having you focus on the positive, and which can have lasting effects on the brain. So that the effects can take time to kick in, so they suggest making gratitude a daily practice. In a more recent article in 2020 in the Harvard Business Review, some researchers, Locklear, Taylor, and Ambrose, discussed the importance of gratitude for eliciting positive emotions, especially during times of stress. So you could include gratitude as part of your meetings or during your one-to-one supervision sessions, and ask, what do they appreciate about someone, or what are they grateful for? Spending a few minutes on this can influence the mood of your meeting or your one-to-one. You can also have a gratitude wall, or as I mentioned, a journal, but a journal at work for people to just fill in messages of gratitude. So there are lots of ways to make gratitude and appreciation part of your work environment in your daily or weekly activities. Okay, that's tip number 3. So tip number 4, validate your people. Validating is when you acknowledge what the person is experiencing. So different from appreciation and different from gratitude. If they say they're tired, you can say, yes, this is exhausting, right? It's as simple as just acknowledging, hey, you're feeling this and I hear you. So whatever they're feeling, I'm so frustrated. Wow, that sounds like this is a really frustrating event for you. Lean in to whatever it is that they're feeling. For instance, so during your meeting, when people are sharing the frustrations and you acknowledge their emotional state, whatever it is that they're feeling, when you do that, they feel validated. This builds goodwill because people feel that you understand that they are hurting and that they're in pain, and you want to offer them something. And sometimes just offering them your ear and your time can be meaningful, very meaningful, especially when you don't have much else to offer them. There is nothing worse than telling someone who's experiencing an emotion that they should not feel that way. By doing so, you make them wrong for feeling what they're feeling, and that never feels good. So good leaders do not do that. Good leaders validate. Validation goes a long way for acknowledging and accepting their emotions and whatever pain or happiness they're experiencing, because it doesn't have to be, well, we're talking about challenging times. More likely than not, it's going to be frustration that you're hearing. But during other times, they may be very excited about things. And there's ways you want to validate that as well. And again, by being heard, it feels really good to the receiver. Okay. Tip number 5, communicate. Communicate, communicate. Let them know what you are doing to fix things and make things better. Just let them know what you're doing, even if nothing's changed. Just say, this is what we're doing, and we're going to do this again this week, even if it's the same. They do not know exactly what you're working on behind the scenes. And while you don't need to inform them of every little thing, find a way to communicate what they need to know that impacts them. It reinforces that, yeah, you're part of their team and you're advocating for them. Even if you haven't achieved big results yet. What you do as a manager often takes time behind the scenes, And the more you communicate what you're working on, the more they understand that you're doing something. They know that you're working on their behalf. And so when you communicate where things stand and what to expect, it helps to keep people focused on what they can be doing and what they, of course, can expect of you. Okay, tip number 6. Last, if you can pitch in, then pitch in. There are times when pitching in is just not an option. And if you, of course, if you're doing their job all the time, then no one will be available to lead the unit. But if and when you can help out, it is important that people see you contributing to the team in whatever way you can, that you're rolling up your sleeves and diving in to help. Once you do, don't be surprised if the team pushes you out so you can continue to do your managerial duties. I mean, they want your support and they need you at the helm. So let's just do a recap. Tip number 1, appreciate, look for the good and acknowledge it. Look for the good of the human beings that are around you. And you know, we talk about your staff, but your colleagues too. And don't forget your boss. Higher ups, the higher up you go, they need support too. They're struggling as well. So appreciation is for everybody. Tip number 2, offer space for sharing and complaining, a place to vent, to share, and to resonate with your staff. Resonate means meeting them where they are within their emotional state. Don't forget to celebrate your wins whenever you can do to bring people together and get real with them. That's really what that safe space is all about. Number 3, express gratitude. Be thankful for what you do have. Number 4, validate people's emotions. Just lean in and whatever it is they're feeling, validate. It's okay for them to be feeling whatever they're feeling. Number 5, communicate. Can't say that enough. And number 6, pitch in when you can. While you cannot always change the circumstances, you can't wave a magic wand so that another staff just miraculously shows up out of thin air. You can create a work environment where people feel appreciated, cared about, and valued. And that goes a really long way. And none of these tips cost you anything but attention and time. And the benefits are enormous. So I highly recommend you keep a journal and reflect upon your leadership journey. Let me know how you're doing. Place your comments or questions below so I know how I can assist you on your leadership journey. I'll address any leadership questions in the future video. Or if you need assistance sooner, visit me online at my website, drjuliedonnelly.com. Please like the video and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the video lessons. Make it a great week.